Good afternoon, sir.
We are live.
Hi, Ketan.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon, friends. I hope everyone is doing well. We will just wait a few minutes before everyone joins in the session. A very good afternoon to everybody. This is Stage Contractor from BCBA Trainings Committee. Thanks so much for joining. We are just going to wait for another minute or two before everyone joins in. We already have about 90 people who have joined us. Thank you so much for joining for this very important session on CAROTAR. Okay, we have crossed a century. It's 3:31. We will take a minute more and allow those people who are joining in to join before we start. A very good afternoon once again from BCBA. So a very good afternoon to everyone. We are a little over 125 people. We will start the session with the interest of time. We have today a very interesting session, but before we start, we'll just give you a few housekeeping rules. So if you have any questions or so that you would like to ask, please ask them in the Q&A section of the chat. If you are asked any questions other than that, or if you have any points that you would like to put across, please do mention that in the chat section and one of us will get back to you on that shortly. So today we are here for a very, very interesting session on CAROTAR. So everyone, I'm sure, knows what CAROTAR is. It has come in September 2020. It's about 2 years. However, it's very, very important for all of us. It redefines the way we do business under trade agreements. The full form of CAROTAR, I'm sure you all know, but it is Customs Administration of Rules of Origin under Trade Agreement Rules 2020. This is very significant because it has defined the way business run. In the last 2 decades that FTAs and rules of origin have become more prominent, we have seen very successful trade move across trading blocks, such as the European Union, NAFTA, etc. We've seen significant growth of trade even with India and the ASEAN countries. One significant and important reason is because of the movement of goods across regions where free trade is more prevalent. I will now request, I'll now hand over to our Senior Vice President, Shri Sanjeev Harale, to take over. Sanjeev sir, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Tej, who's handling BCBA Skill Development and Training Committee. A very good initiative by this committee, and also our president, Mr. Dushan Mulani, who's very passionate about training and raising the bar of our fraternity. Good evening and welcome to all the participants for this important session. We also have office bearers and managing committee members attending this session today. And thank you for being here and sharing your inputs for this webinar. Today we have a wonderful audience. It is heartening to see the numbers that have logged in. It only shows the interest in the subject. So thank you for being here in such large numbers. My dear friends, let's get back to upskilling ourselves. Today's session will be focusing on CAROTAR. CAROTAR rules are an additional level of compliance that cast an added responsibility on the importer to observe due diligence and also to understand the basic information that the importer needs to know before importing the goods. These rules are meant to help the importer ascertain the country of origin and assist customs authorities in smooth clearance of goods. Friends, today we are fortunate to have with us Dr. Joshua. He is an industry expert on customs matters. He has conducted sessions on various topics in the past and has also been a mentor to BCBA. We also have Mr. Dheer from a leading corporate house, having over 35 years experience, sharing his perspective as an importer. So friends, be attentive throughout as this is precious time that you are giving to this session. If you have any queries, Mr. Joshua will address the questions, but not beyond today's topic on CAROTAR. So without taking much time, I would now request our president to address the participants. With this, I extend my warm wishes to you all for a productive and enlightening session. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Sanjeev, for nice introduction here. Warm welcome to the entire participants out here for this all important webinar on our essential subject which we deal on day-to-day basis. I would say not day-to-day, hour-to-hour for imports, because imports under FTA has increased substantially. And today we are fortunate to have with us Mr. Joshua Ebenezer, who is a mentor to all of us out here. If we have any issues, probably Mr. Joshua is the first person that we all of us go across, seek his guidance and his view on it. And with his vast experience, international exposure which he has with World Trade Organization and WCO, he's the man who gives us always sound bit of advice. We also have with us industry expert Mr. D.N. Dheer, and he has a vast industry experience of 35 years. Even before CAROTAR came into being, he has been handling various free trade agreement related notifications, undergone a lot of explanations, investigations with customs also, and with his rich experience in this segment, we are fortunate to have both of you, Mr. Joshua and Mr. Dheer. Thank you. Friends, on day-to-day basis, all of us get phone calls here in BCBA and across the country in FFA also, asking us specifically about what are the constituents of CAROTAR, how do we make ourselves very secure, safe, so that tomorrow if there is any investigation, post-clearance audit query, or any query at the time of assessment, we are able to address the matter. Day-to-day issues, we find rampantly that appraising officers take the call and try to deny the benefit claimed under CAROTAR and country of origin certificates. Do they have the authority to do that? If they want to reject, what is the process to be followed? What is the RBC content requirement? What is the Form I declaration supposed to be? Suppose if your FTA certificate is post arrival of the consignment, would it be allowed or not? These are the queries which we encounter upon, and Mr. Joshua and Mr. Dheer would answer them, guide us through them, and also give us, I've requested to give some toolkit to help our members. Furthermore, if your bill of entry is assessed provisionally, for years together, it remains provisional. You don't know whether whom to approach. If you approach custom, they say they are still awaiting answer, replies from Department of International Customs, New Delhi, and your provisional assessment still goes on for 2 to 3 years. This is where we stand. This is where we are. And I won't take much of your time. I would request team to give a detailed introduction of both the esteemed speakers and thereafter over to both of them. Thank you. Yeah, Neerav.
Thank you very much, Dushan Bhai. So you heard it from our president of BCBA, Sri Dushan Mulani ji, and he's also the chairman of FAI. So I will have the pleasure of introducing Joshua sir, and Chaitali will then take over and introduce Dheer sir. So just to give you a detailed introduction, Joshua sir was a part of leading giants like DHL Global, NYK, DB Shankar, and he specialized in trade compliance. In his most recent role, he was the Director of Customs and International Trade at Lakshmi Kumaran and Sridharan Attorneys. It's one of the leading law firms in India. He currently is, he directs Newcove Facility Trade. It's a cutting edge consulting law firm with a global footprint, and his focus remains deep rooted in the web of international trade and customs law. In addition to this, he also represents India at the WTO and the WCO as well. He's been a participant at the 3rd WCO AEO conference, the 4th WCO AEO conference, and also the 5th one recently held in Dubai. He closely works with the Directorate of International Customs on transformation projects and MRAs and other groundbreaking activities. In addition to that, he contributes towards trade bodies such as FAI, such as CII, FIO, and he is also a TAPA auditor. So those of you who don't know, TAPA is a very prestigious certification. It's called the Transported Asset Protection Association. And it is, if you're a TAPA service provider, you're one of the most elite. Joshua sir, thank you very much for joining us. And I would request, I would please, without any further ado, hand over the session to you to take it further.
Thank you, Tej. Chaitali, would you like to introduce Mr. Dheer as well?
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Chaitali Mehta. I am honored to introduce our next panelist, Mr. D.N. Dheer. Welcome to BCBA, sir, and we look forward to having you here. Mr. Dheer is an industry expert with over 35 years of experience and specialized or skilled in the field of logistics, foreign trade policy and customs law, amongst other things. Not taking too much of time, I'm handing over the baton to you, Joshua, and to Mr. Dheer to take it forward. Have a lovely session, everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chaitali. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Dushyant, Tej, and all the panelists, and my co-speaker, Mr. Dheer, and all the participants this afternoon. It's really a joy to meet and address. Every time when Dushyant calls and gives an opportunity like this, I always cherish. I could have told I have another meeting in the morning, which I could have, it was cancelled. And I give preference to BCB always, because this community is the one which I always admire. Whether you believe it or not, in every session that I say, the most brilliant community is the customs broker. You may not accept, but that's a fact, because you can talk anything. You can talk on any subject and you can respond. The other day I was talking to Dr. Neerav, how multitasking is possible. And I don't believe in multitasking. because I've read research reports published by reputed management companies, and I don't believe until I see some of the handpicked people in BCBA who in front of my own eyes, they do multitasking. So then I do not know, the report may be wrong. All right. So that efficient this community is. That efficient is this community. So it's always an honor to address you this afternoon. And number two, this is not a subject which is coming new, CAROTAR or trade related discussion that we are going to do. We did address CAROTAR. All of you are participating are familiar with what is CAROTAR, what is free trade agreement to some extent. Now we are facing a lot of challenges in the trade. Now it could be for two reasons. One, I don't understand the concept very well, because of which I make some mistakes, or probably I do not know how to communicate this to my importer who is not well versed with the process or the expectation created by the government. So he repeatedly makes mistakes. Or third, we can say that customs officers deliberately delaying, deliberately doing it. The government of India deliberately trying to find fault on records. Deliberately they're trying to find faults and trying to delay the process or deny the benefits. There could be any one truth. Which is the truth? You are the best judge to decide after finishing the session. So I always say before starting any session, there are procedures. There are procedures, and India is known for process and procedures. But there are concepts which is globally renowned. The custom stands on three pillars. Number one, HSN principles. Number two, GATT valuation principles. And number three, rules of origin. If anyone in the world, not in India, anyone in the world, if they say that I am an expert in customs, supposed to have hands-on, and all these three pillars, not to some extent, he should have at least have a mastery level in this three subjects. If he or she is not familiar with the process and procedure, absolutely acceptable, because every state is introducing some new process and procedure. Every countries are introducing. It is all getting harmonized now. So process and procedures, it will be there today. It will not be there tomorrow. So that is not the concern. But as a customs broker, today, if I wake you up in your dream and ask you about a classification, you are hands-on. You ask any customs broker about customs valuation, to some extent, except certain integrities, they will be able to handle procedurally as well as conceptually. But when it comes to CAROTAR, we got a awakening scene now. People are not aware about rules of origin. What is this rules of origin? Why we are not aware? Why this was not spoken much? Because our duties are not calculated very stringently based on rules of origin earlier. The focus was more on what tariff item that you classify, what notification benefit that we claim. But if you go on the contrary globally, the rules of origin plays an amazing role. Since I always use Europe as an example, we say advanced ruling. In European Union, they call it as binding tariff information, binding valuation information, binding origin information. So BOI. So they file advanced ruling to determine an origin every time, because origin is not, if you think origin is so easy, like what we are thinking, what is so big about it? Just we need to get a certificate of origin. It is originated from this country. What is so big deal about it? We can't think anything more than that. You ask someone, importer, what is rules of origin? Rules of origin is what? Country of origin, certificate of origin. It should be in a particular parameter. That's all, RVC to be there. If that is so easy, it may not be a pillar, because it has huge implications. So in this context, today, we will be talking about, our agenda is going to be like, we will talk the overview concept of regional trade agreements or preferential trade agreements. What are the types of trade agreements are there? And then we will go into a little deeper on basic elements. Maybe 200 plus people are there. Some of you may have reached this mastery level. Definitely, I appreciate that. But most of you, definitely you need certain basic elements. Okay. How do I deal with customs? How do I deal with my importer? And on behalf of my importer, how do I deal with my shipper? How do I write? What do I check? For that, we need to have some basic fundamentals, because CAROTAR is an offshoot of these principles. Then what are India's engagement in these trade agreements? We will see some example, for example, India, Japan, or India, South Korea, or India, UAE, Australia. So these four case studies will help you to differentiate what, though I'm showing the partnership agreement, though it will help you to understand how a trade agreement is generally phrased. And then we will move into CAROTAR. What is this CAROTAR? How this CAROTAR emerged? What is the necessity for this CAROTAR? Why Government of India suddenly woke up in 2020? What was the reason? And if they woke up at 2020 and are they creating a burden on the trade when the trade facilitation regime is in the verge of completion? Are we trying to simplify things, or are we trying to create more burden on the trade? What was the real intent of the government? And then how this CAROTAR process is being followed. So this is the agenda that we are going to run. So in the contrary, that we also have a industry expert, the most respected, the most admired, probably many of you may not be knowing it. I had an opportunity to interact with them, the most humble gentleman who's missed us. So Mr. Deer. And his perspectives, he is hands-on day in and day out. I speak from theory, I speak from the cases that we handle, but he does in the ground reality. He faces SIB, he faces DRI, he faces the officers on a day in, day out, manages customs brokers like you. Definitely their perspective also is very helpful. So you as a trade will be able to receive these different perspectives today. Before I could start the overview, I wanted to invite Mr. Deer to just share some of his perspectives and what challenges he faces in the trade, and to reserve it from there. And then we will go through the sessions, and during the course of the discussion, he will also bring his perspectives in the relevant place. Over to you, Mr. Deer.
Thank you, Mr. Joshua, and thanks a lot for beautifully outlining the today's session. First of all, I thank BCBA for giving me this privilege and opportunity to be part of the session today. So to begin with, I know the CAROTAR brings a lot of chill to everyone, and as and when it was introduced in 2020, it suddenly brought a lot of pressure and new troubles for each and every importer. So the critical points which really come out during my last 2.5 years after introduction of CAROTAR are that the points which we need to keep in mind is, first, majority of the agreements what we have talks about two things. One is the minimum value addition content, or what we say regional value content, RVC. And second is change in tariff heading or change in tariff heading at subheading level. So CTSH or CTH. So these two things have to be primarily kept in mind before analyzing whether we will be able to get the FTA benefits or not. Based upon the queries and the what you call different objections what we have received from customs from time to time, 3-4 things are majorly coming out. Though CAROTAR provides lot of discretionary powers to customs, and without giving any reasons, they are able to suspend the benefit, which is legitimately available to us. But in spite of explaining and providing all the details, the certificates are being sent for verification and provisional assessments are resorted to. As Dushan Bhai has rightly explained, if the provisional assessment goes on for years together, there is no clarity when the verification is going to take place, when the verification is going to come, and ultimately the poor importer is burdened with additional cost of bank guarantees which he has executed with the bank. And the bank guarantees also, what they ask are automatic renewal clause. So without anybody's intervention, the cost goes on increasing. So in my view, there are 3-4 things which are required to be kept in mind. One is, as I said, RVC content. For understanding the RVC content, basically, if we see the pro forma form 1 which government is prescribed, part B on the top, wherein they are asking the list of originating good. And there are 3 questions which are assigned to each of the items there. So if we are basically able to correlate for each and every item and see what kind of answers the manufacturer or the supplier has given, you will be able to ascertain whether the originating content, what the supplier is saying, is coming out of the country of supply is correct or not. Because if there is any deficiency or any wrongdoing in the reply by the suppliers, the value of that material will be treated as non-originating material. And this becomes equally important in those cases wherein the value additions are basically in the range of 36 to 38%. So majority of agreements have 35% as the threshold limit, except Singapore, which has got 40%. So we need to be a little careful, basically, which are coming on the borderline, to understand whether the declarations given by the suppliers are correct or not. The second part is the change in tariff heading in the sub-heading level, they are 6-digit level. So when we ask suppliers to provide the list of non-originating material with their customs heading, we have observed in order to get their goods qualify for FTA, they are mentioning some different tariff heading for the items which are not falling in that heading. So if they give the actual tariff heading, our goods may not qualify for the FTA benefit. But these kind of problems, if you go into detail, you will be able to find out. The third majority query which always we keep on receiving is the time period is prescribed in every agreement when the certificate of origin has to be issued. Like in case of Asian agreement, it says within 3 working days from the date of shipment. And in case if it's not issued within 3 working days, then it has to be issued retroactively. So many a times the issuing authority forgets to tick the retroactive box in the certificate of origin, and the custom officer here is, on his whole this thing denying the benefit to us. So while the customs broker or the importer, it's the responsibility to see what is the date of shipment and when the certificate has been issued, and when or it has been issued within the time period as prescribed under the law. If it is not there, then this retroactive clause should be ticked. The fourth common mistake which I have seen is the treatment of packing material. Now, majority of the agreements, if you see in detail, do not allow the percentage or the value of packing materials to be included for calculating RVC. So majority of the importers in India, except the goods which are put up for retail sale, the goods which are packed only for the purposes of transportation. The value of packing material is not to be included for calculating the RVC. So in case if we are able to check the basic points, I know Mr. Joshua will take us forward and give us the nitty-gritty of the things involved in CAROTAR and what details needs to be checked. But as an industry perspective and as a customs broker or as an importer, we ourselves should have sufficient knowledge and understanding what are the critical points which are to be kept in mind before deciding the eligibility of that item under an FTA agreement. So this is what right now I have in my mind. I hand over back to Mr. Joshua to take the session forward.
Thank you, Adir, for sharing your insights. Definitely, these are all worthwhile for us to consider. What we can also help the trade, maybe we can compile these kind of commonly asked questions and prepare them. That it will be like a ready knocker with them to address as and when they find some kind of a difficulties like this. All right. Thank you. I think it's a very good industry perspective that you have shared. So, ladies and gentlemen, this evening we are starting at 4 o'clock. So let's see how quick that I can finish you with pertinent points without boring you much and not making you to read something. But definitely whatever information we intend to share it with you, which will all be sent across to you through BCBA. And there will be some important slides which I want you to see. I will show it to you from time to time as well. All right. So globally, what we need to understand, FTA, free trade agreements. So when we say agreements, two countries, country A and country B coming together and trying to speak with each other in different terms. I give you this, you give me this. We call it as bilateral agreement. There are times there could be a unilateral agreement where I actually don't bother anything about you. For example, Mr. Modi is traveling to a country and let's say he travels to Bhutan. Bhutan globally considered as least developed country. So we go and say, I will give you $100 million. Maybe there is no condition. It's a unilateral trade agreement which was created. I will do this for you. So globally, this kind of things keep on happening. Now, one question which you need to ask. Now, India is going and doing some collaboration with one country and considering that country as someone special. Considering that one country with a preferential duty, which means for the rest of the world, it is 10%. For this only one country, it is 5%, hypothetically. What will be the response of the whole world? Can anyone unmute or can anyone put it in the chat? You're all customs brokers, so you can definitely have some perspectives to respond to me. If one country is treated by India very favorably with a preferential rate of duty, what will the other country will do? What rights they have? That's a question. What do you think? You can unmute and speak if you can, or my audience as always, I ask Tej and Nirav respond back in case if they can. Otherwise, audience, you can just put your answer through the chat box. What do you think?
Sorry, Joshua, since this is a webinar, they will not be able to speak, but they can definitely reply in the chat box or in the Q&A box.
Yeah.
So audience, if you can please reply to Mr. Joshua's question, if you have the answer, either in the Q&A box or in the chat box. Thank you.
All right. So I'm not seeing any quick response from you. It doesn't matter. So what the other countries can do, they can take up that particular country to WTO and say, this country is not aligning with MFN. That is the power of MFN, most favored nation. So which means if I give a benefit to any one country, then I am bound to give the same benefit to the rest of the country. So what does it mean? How this MFN concept created by WTO facilitates? So which means you all need to understand 24. We say 24, easy to remember, no? 24. Roman 24, which means X4. 24. Article 24 of WTO agreement, which gives you a provision that if countries wants to enter into any free trade agreement, regional agreements, you are exempted from this MFN clause. It's very simple. This is the first and fundamental foremost thing that we need to keep it in mind. So this kind of a concept today emerging globally, there are about some 300 plus FTAs across the globe prevailing currently. Two countries will have market access. I give you this market, you give me this market. This is how the market access happens. So this is your first and foremost thing that you need to understand, that we are not against MFN. WTO itself allows that. Okay. Now the second point, we always use a word called free trade agreement for everything that we say FTA, right? What is FTA? Without even understanding, I was addressing a session sometime back, even today, early this morning. There is a program, there is a benefit that they had taken. So I asked a question to them saying that you all have taken this benefit. What does this benefit means to you all? Most of them were unable to give an correct answer. And they were just talking about something in a very different peripheral things. So it is very pertinent for us to understand free trade agreements, which means that word trade comprises many concepts into it. Number one, goods, you can bring it in. That is also trade. Then we can also bring in service governed by GATT's General Agreement on Trade and Service. You heard about it? GATT, everyone are familiar. This is GATS, General Agreement on Trade and Service. So two, goods, services. Free trade agreement also includes investments. It is also governed globally called TRIMS, TRIMS. Trade, what is trade? TRIMS stands for Trade Related Investment Measure, TRIMS. And IPR, Intellectual Property Rights. It is also termed as TRIPS, 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 which means the agreement on trade-related aspects of intellectual property right and other trade-related issues like humans, migration, etc. So what you need to understand, anytime when you see a word free trade agreement, it is not only dealing with goods, services, investments, IPR, and other trade-related matters. It's very deep and comprehensive. So we will see some examples as to how deep that it can go, like customs unions, how it can go, economic union, how it can go, common market, how in Europe that is demonstrated, that we will be seeing it. On the contrary, that we also see some words called, or an acronym called, preferential trade agreement, PTA. Most of us, even in the question box, I have seen some questions coming to me saying that, what is the difference between PTA and CEPA? Now, colloquial terms, we look at a SUV kind of a thing and we say, he has a Jeep, Jeep. That is framed in our mind. We go to a photocopy shop and we say, I'll go and take a Xerox. So like that, this FTA concept is imprinted or imbibed into people's mind. Today, whether it is CICA or CEPA or PTA, people call it as FTA. But it can be with an importer, it can be with an exporter, not with a customs broker. Customs broker should have utmost clarity on that. If I had told you this big is a gamut of FTA, then what is PTA? PTA is a very, very basic, or even if we can term it in that way, this is the first step of any collaboration. It is very narrow scope, which means I am reducing tariff, and sometime whatever the quotas, both I will be reducing. I will have one positive list, which means it is not comprehensive like FTA, but there could be some PTAs are reciprocal. It could be the other way, unilateral also. One of two examples, if you can, if you want to remember what is PTA, Mercosur PTA is one good example. Mercosur, MERCOUSUR, this South American countries. That is a PTA. GSP is another PTA. Developed countries are giving to developing countries without any expectation, no reciprocal. Suppose if you export to European Union, all they are asking is it coming from India? Is it originating from India? Give me a certificate of origin. You go to the Chamber of Commerce or go to a DGFT online or some, whatever the listed authorities, you go and get a certificate of origin and you go and clear the goods with the preferential rate of duty, which means Europe is not expecting, the developed country is not expecting anything but rendering you a service. The same way America gives for, 1,000+ items were revoked during Trump time, you can all recall. So GSP benefits is also a kind of PTA. So what we need to take out from this is duty concessions are given, not exemptions. You can write it in your book. Duty concessions are given. What is the difference between consumption and exemption? I exempt you from total duty, which means it's zero. I am not exempting you. I'm only giving you a concession. So if it is coming from a developed country, I give you some concession. If it is coming from a least developed country, I give you some concession. It could be bilateral, it could be unilateral. So this understanding that we need to have for PT. Having said that, what is the next level that we can advance it? So we can go to one level, which we can call it as partnership. I can do a partnership. How do I partner with someone? There are many partnership agreements that we have. CEPA. Sorry for using this acronym. CEPA, CICA, RCEP, all these things are very few, kind of, it narrates the concepts. This is also an extensive agreement which will have a wider cooperation between these countries or between some regions. Now here, besides goods, besides service, it also includes investments and IPR, which I've already told you. One more new things which I'm adding over here in the partnership is called competition policy. And country to country, they can discuss and say that any other economic partnership that we can do it. So this is how the integration under partnership agreement evolve. We will see a few example in realistic term with the notification, what are the things are covered. This is just a prelude. And then the last one, we call it as Comprehensive Economic Cooperation Agreement. Similar to CEPA, CECA is also very broad in terms of economic issues. So it involves, besides this, research and development can be added into this cooperation. Even your education can be added into it, and even science, technology. You know, it can create some greater economic cooperation between two countries. So this kind of an agreements are called as CECA. So now next time onwards, whenever that you read these agreements, you should be able to PTA very easy, which will have only positive list, and we'll also talk about the sensitive list, all this kind of things. But now we are talking in the framework part of it. Then, mega trade agreements. Are there any such thing called mega trade agreements? Yes. Globally, we have jumbo notification, we call it as, right? One notification comprises of almost everything. Like that, there are mega trade agreements are also prevailing in the globe. For example, Trans-Pacific Partnership. Is it something relevant for us? Yes, of course it is relevant. We'll see how that is relevant. It involves around 12 countries, Trans-Pacific. So which means Transatlantic Pacific, in the rim of the ocean, whatever the countries are there. For example, if you start from Australia, Brunei, Canada, Chile, Panama, Malaysia, Mexico, New Zealand, Peru, Singapore, USA, Vietnam, all this rim of Pacific and Transatlantic, all these countries, they formed an alliance. So that is known as globally TPP. It is also known as Comprehensive Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership. So they also call it a CPTPP, but TPP you can remember. Another agreement which is known as Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership, but this got stalled in 2016. That is between European Union and USA. So just for information, we don't need to worry about it. Then another big agreement which emerged, which is called RCEP, which means all of us in India, AIFTA, ASEAN, there are 10 countries are there in ASEAN. Another 6 countries are likely to be added, and this needs to be together 16 countries. So this was RCEP, but fortunately or unfortunately, we, India, backed out from RCEP. So as of today, it is 15 countries. So ASEAN countries plus 6 countries like Australia, New Zealand, plus South Korea. This kind of 6 countries are there. So I don't want to name the country name here to bore you. Then the next mega agreement called NAFTA, North American Free Trade Agreement, mainly between Canada, Mexico, and United States, North American. So this was initiated from 1994 until 2020. Then later on, this got replaced by a new name called United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement. So USMCA. Okay, so nothing to do with India. So at least for theoretical purpose, you should know this. And the very, very important one is European Union. European Union is like a political, very, very important. If anyone needs to understand regional trade agreements, the typical example is European Union. European Union has 27 states, member states, they call it as, because they had 28. UK is out now, so they have 27 states. In European Union, this concept, you try to memorize it or understand it conceptually, which will help you to follow me further. There is something known as customs union, which means the European Union, one member is sending a goods to another union, the trade under zero duty, which means within the 27 countries, we can call it as states, there is a common tariff, which means if it is 5% here, 5% everywhere. If it is 0 here, everywhere is 0. So this is how the union developed within this 28 states. Now it is 27 states. Now, one step ahead from customs, they moved into one more step. Then they call it as common market, European common market. What is market and what is union? Customs restricts only to tariff, only to customs related aspects, common tariff. The moment you move to a market, additional things were added. Number one, they say within the member countries, there should be a harmonized technical standards. So we don't need to have a different standard. Like I do a testing in my country and I send it to you, you accept it because you trust me, because we both are integral country. So then capital, I move capital resource from here to there to here, labor. So labor can move freely, capital can move freely, technical standards can move freely. So this concept is called common market. So European Union common market. And then finally, European Economic Union. See, integrations, the best example in the world currently is European Union. We use the word EU, right? The real EU is a culmination of 27 states now. You know what happens? Customs Union moved into a common market now extended further. They said, we will have one legislative institutions. Why do we need, every state needs to have a legislative, one legislative, like we have Mandralaya, Bombay, right? Why do we need to have every state? You go to Tamil Nadu, they have a secretariat. You go to Kerala, you go to Karnataka. Let us have all India, one legislative. How it looks like. Exactly the same way European Union is now looking like one legislative institution. And they have one justice system, that is European Union Court of Justice. European Union Court of Justice. So one court gives a verdict, it applies to the entire states. They share executives. European Union, they share the executives, which means the bureaucrats. It is not every state will have a bureaucrat. They share the bureaucrats among themselves. And even the fiscal and monetary policies are common across this. So this is how the economic is completely comprised as an economic union. I hope you are following me, right? So what did we see? We saw regional trade agreements and the 4 different types of agreements. And then we moved into the mega trade agreements. And then we have seen how customs union, customs market, and economic unions are evolving. MFN we have seen. See, on the concept level, we have to understand these things. Then something in the free trade agreement, very, very important, called de minimis or MOP, minimum operation process. So when they wanted to understand that these goods are originating from our country, a product is not deemed originating in the territory. Suppose if you do some basic simple operation, for example, Mr. Dheer said packing. A simple packing, you just put something in a packing or doing some simple assembly, put 5 parts together and just you with your hand, you just tie it up, or you remove it, disassemble, or you slaughter some animal, cow is coming in and you're cutting it as a meat and then you're saying, see, what imported was a live animal, what is going out as a meat, or maybe you import a concentrate and then you pour some kind of a chemicals, then you dilute it completely. And these kind of an operations are known as minimum operation process. This will not affect the origin. So that is one concept. You just keep it in the back of your mind. The second one is direct consignment. You know, all these are all dots which now I'm putting it on. Now, when you connect the dot, it will be like a shape while in a few minutes. Direct consignment. What is direct consignment? I ship from India directly to another country. There is no unloading, no transshipment, no other operations in third country. Direct shipment. When I move from here, it goes to another country, which is direct consignment. So we have seen MOP, we have seen direct consignment. Retroactive check, while ago Mr. Dheer said, special benefits if you click that, because this is something very, very deep. Retroactive check, every customs can do it. You know, the procedure is 3 months. Within that 3 months, they have to complete it. If there is any delay, then you can clear it under PD. We will talk about that in a little while. Important thing is change in HS code. Change in HS code. For those who are familiar, fine. For those who are introducing yourself to this FTA, change in HS code means what? I am importing wood logs, WOOD, wood logs. Usually brokers, you will immediately say, where do you classify wood? It just comes in your mind as 44 chapter, right? 44. So 44 chapter, you import something into India. Now, what do you do with the wood? You have to cut it and create some articles out of it. When you create some articles, it becomes a wooden furniture. The moment it becomes a furniture, will it stay in 44 chapter? Definitely no. It moves to a 94 chapter, correct? Wooden article goes to 94 chapter. So which means the codes are changing at what level? Completely at 6-digit level it is changing. It could be somewhere 4-digit. It could be 6 digits. So anytime when there is a HS code moves from one place to another place, it normally because of a process of manufacturer or a job working But repacking, relabeling without changing the characteristics, which means wood is still there. For example, you can import wire and you can create, iron rods and you can create a wire. Possible. 4-digit change, it's happening. So this kind of things are known as basic understanding that you need to have. HS code is changing. Change in HS code. Another concept is called sensitive list, which means in every free trade agreement or agreements that we negotiate, there is always a sensitive list. Why do a sensitive list is chosen by Government of India? Because it will have adverse impact on the local industry. So we have to always take into consideration there are some items in the tariff will not be open for the other country to avail the preferential duty benefit. So we keep it in sensitive list. The negotiation will take place in such a way that the duty exemptions are not actually considered immediately. So for example, I will say, these are sensitive item. I agree that I need to give you this benefit. Maybe 10 years we will take it. Each year I'll give you 1% reduction, which means after 10 years it will become zero, not in the first year. So we call it as sensitive. So which means I am opening this item wholeheartedly, no, half-heartedly. Because my countrymen, my industry also needs to know that this particular goods are coming into our country. I need to gear up to increase my standards, increase my capabilities to compete with them. So slowly I will open up the tariff. The next one we call it as exclusion list. The word exclusion itself is self-explanatory, right? I exclude, which means the government is saying we are not prepared to negotiate any duty concession. So those items will be put into exclusion list. So there are item comes into the positive list, there are item comes into the negative list, there are item comes into the sensitive list, and there are item comes into the exclusive list. There are 4 categories that we have seen. Keep this dots also into your mind. Now I wanted to show you some pictures, slides, okay, for you to see a few slides. Definitely worthwhile for you to see. Yes, Mr. Deer, please comment. I see your hand is up.
No, that went up by mistake actually.
Oh, that
Carry on.
mistake. Okay.
I think you have touched
You have a
upon
very good
everything. Just
relation.
touch upon these product specific rules also.
Yeah, coming. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, accidentally a hand goes up is also dangerous, By you just said it, the officer failed to tick that. Accidentally, it just went off. Okay.
Yes. So
There is
that was
only
the query which came in across accidentally actually.
yeah. Very good. Sarji, you can see the screen?
Yes,
Yes, sir.
we can see
Yeah.
the screen. Yes.
Yeah, it's visible.
No PowerPoint?
Can you increase this thing a little, zoom in a little more? Just maybe.
Every time we are challenged on. Okay.
Okay, no worries. I think everybody, no, this is better. This is okay. No worries.
All right. So now, the first point which my fellow panelist or a fellow speaker said, Deer sir said, RVC. RVC is very, very important. And he also used ASEAN. So I also coincidentally taken ASEAN for a better understanding. Okay. So now for those, everybody knows what is RVC. FOB by FOB minus your originating, non-originating multiplied by 100 is your RVC. So this is not a rocket science. Now here, there are 2 methods to calculate RVCs. I'll also give you an example since that we have very limited time. So I'll also put up an example here itself. In my screen, you will be able to see direct method. Imagine there is a toy. Before you come to the formula, you can just read the facts. Imagine a toy company is importing a toy car. Here, the cost associated with the production, that is, I'm using ASEAN India FTA, material cost. The plastic used in the toy, which is sourced from ASEAN countries, costing $2. The labor cost, which involves $1. Overhead cost, that's you call it as operating cost, which is about some 0.50 cents per car. All other costs, you can put it as 0.30, and the company is making a profit of 1.20 per car. The FOB price in which that they sell this car is $5. So what is direct RVC? Add up all these things upon that 5 FOB multiplied by 100 is equal to 100. This is your direct RVC formula. Okay. We then go to the next method called indirect how this indirect method works. So here what we are saying, we'll use another example. A watch company in India, value of the non-originating material, that means non-ASEAN materials, parts and produce. The watch mechanism is imported from Switzerland. When I import a mechanism from Switzerland, Switzerland is not part of ASEAN. Okay, so it is non-originating. If it is originating within ASEAN, suppose if it is watch mechanism is available in India, it is originating. So I'm using the word non-originating. So it is costing $40. Okay, $40. Now, the second one, value of undetermined origin, which means I don't even know which is the correct origin. Undetermined means I'm unable to determine. It could have been imported by 2-3 countries, which we will see. Those components also required to put this watch of around $10. But in the market that I sell this watch for 150. So which means 50 upon 150 into 100 is equal to 33%. Like Deer sir said, the RVC is 35%. So I'm able to only achieve 33%, is less than 35%. So the watch does not meet the criteria of AF. Now, question, which formula that I should use? The law says very clearly, when I say law means the non-tariff notification, that is by delegated legislation, that says members can choose any one formula according to their convenience. But you just prove it either way, whichever is beneficial, you show it and explain to me. Let me just illustrate this here. What you see on the screen. Within the ring, I had put all the countries which are part of ASEAN. If you see bottom, I had mentioned 9 countries. There are furthermore countries to be added. Just for your understanding, whatever you see above, it's all there. Vietnam is there, Malaysia is there, Indonesia is there, India is also there. Now, we are all ASEAN country, correct? Very good. Now, step 1, how do we see this? There is an FTA between countries, A, B, C. If a product is made using, for example, Indonesia producing a raw material and supplying it to Malaysia. This is Indonesia. Indonesia produces a product and giving it to Malaysia. Malaysia does some work on that product and giving it to Vietnam. Vietnam is creating some process and sending it to India. Okay. Is this clear to you, all of you, the panelists at least? A, B, C. If a product is made using materials from Indonesia, further processed in Malaysia, and finally assembled in Vietnam, the final product can still qualify as an originating product of country C under the rules of origin, provided that the FTA has an accumulation provision and all other necessary criteria are met. So the word accumulation, the word, many people, they get withdrawn. The moment I say, hey, what is this accumulation? It's nothing but within that region, within the 10 countries, if you keep moving, buying it from one person to another person, whoever is supplying finally to another one, that country will be deemed as origin. That's all. That's the message for you. Suppose now I'm putting a question. If one material is procured from a non-ASEAN country, that is Germany, and that raw material is moving now to Indonesia, and then followed by Indonesia to Malaysia, Malaysia to Vietnam, Vietnam to India. Now, can anyone respond? Will it be still treated as an originated goods or a non-originated goods? Yes, Ashutosh? Oh, you're putting in chat.
We are getting it as non-originated.
Very good. So you are able to now understand very clearly. Very good. So this is how the cumulative rules to be understood. Okay. So is there any confusion? If you read a lot of English in the agreement, it talks about a paragraph. Don't get confused. The whole message is this. That's it. Okay. So if you're able to understand, this is how the cumulative method needs to be understood. Clear. Now let's go to the next one. Many people are thinking, okay, we know Sri Lanka, we know ASEAN, we know SAFTA. But if you see, there are 34 unilateral agreements that India has entered with many countries, and all maybe around 2008. Have you noticed something? Since 2011, forget about Bhutan, since 2011, India, Japan, after Korea, where you see in the serial number 2, 2011, okay, there are no significant FTAs that we entered. We were about to close RCEP, but this government was very, Afghanistan also happened in the previous government. After Mr. Piyush Goyal taken over as a minister in this Minister of Commerce, a lot of things taken place. Maybe since you are customs broker, you're supposed to know why CAROTAR. This is also a reason, why CAROTAR. When I took over a company, what will as a boss I will see? I will see the bottom line, right? What is my bottom line? Am I making profit? Or am I likely to make profit? This is what every businessman will see. And Mr. Goyal is also a gold medalist, a chartered accountant. No doubt his eyes directly went in saying that, oh my God, you have so many FTAs currently prevailing. Tell me, are we having trade deficit or trade surplus? You all understand what is trade deficit, what is trade surplus, right? The report given to Mr. Piyush Goyal was surprising. Every agreement invariably in trade deficit, which means you and me on a good faith entered into a free trade agreement, thinking that I will share this, you open this, but we end up in trade deficit and there is no trace of trade surplus. When Mr. Piyush Goyal digged into this little deeper and he wanted to know where we are losing, because we open 85%, 90% of our trade, which means tariff lines to another country. So let us analyze which are the tariff lines we are gaining, which are the tariff lines we are losing, which are the products. So then we can go back to that industry and give some recommendation to Nidhi Aayog to improve or to remove their blockades. With a good sense, he approached. When he took the data from DG Statistics, there is a department called Director General of Statistics in Kolkata. They gave a data. When they went with the data for a negotiation, the other side party said, your data are incorrect because Indian customs relied completely on customs brokers' data. Customs brokers are very conveniently used residual entry instead of specific entries. For example, if there is an invoice, like Mr. Deer pointed out, misclassification, you go to a particular heading and then you check, for example, 8481 talks about valves. There are types of valves, are there, butterfly valve, pressure reducing valve. But the benefit is given only to the residuary heading 8481 9000. Brokers are without any hesitation thinking, anyway, it is 8481. Let me just put it in 8481 90. And they are getting the benefit. How on earth somebody can understand what exactly the items was imported? What was imported from that country? It is saying others, 8481 others. We do not know what exactly that item. That was a time in the year 2019, Mr. Goyal issued a trade notice to the entire country. He said, all those importers who are classifying the goods under others now need to reclassify it under specific heading, which means I have the power to create tariff line 7 and tariff line 8. You tell me, under 8481, what is your valve? If you say my valve name is XYZ valve, I'll create an entry for you. But I will never allow you to put it in others. At the time, people were mocking globally, people were laughing, people were saying, okay, will it really happen? But still, he was very firm because he says statistics is very, very important. For me, classifying the goods in the right heading is important. Number two, putting the correct UQC, unit code quantity, is also important. So he again issued another trade circular telling by 2020 February, you need to change everything. Otherwise, I will put a restriction so that you need to come to me for license. These are all not story. It happened. Trade notice, you can just check it out in 2019. You will see 3 trade notices comes out from Ministry of Commerce. And whether it is a blessing or a disguise, we do not know. By the time that he started moving in that direction, Corona came and saved us or whatever happened. And all these things comes to a stop. Exactly during the same time when he took over, that's the time RCEP also failed because we didn't want to go further on RCEP. So this is how the trade made data. Every customs broker, when you put documents, when you put data, you should also need to know whether you're classifying it in residual heading. You should be all the more careful in producing the correct, asking the correct clarification from your importer, because they will simply say, just put it in others and clear it. We need to be careful about it. So India, as I told you, 12 FTAs, we have bilateral agreements, which we have, which includes certain regional agreements, and we have unilateral agreements. Recently, the United Arab Emirates and then Australia, including that 12, we are still hardly negotiating. Hard negotiations are happening between UK. Still, before Diwali, something is likely to come up. That's what the news says, but it doesn't look like, the chances are very dim. Still, the negotiations are very tough with EU, UK, and all. It's going on. Okay. So I showed you, still I need to show you screens. Yeah, sorry. Nirav, full screen available, no?
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
Yes, full screen is available.
Okay. So now we have seen in the previous slide bilateral agreements, which means it's India was one country. It could be FTA, it could be CEPA, it could be CICA, it could be Thailand. We had early harvest scheme, and we also had with Chile PTA. So it could be anything. But now we are seeing the blocks, that is regional agreements. So India and Asia. So almost 10 countries which are there. The country names are there. India and APTA. If suddenly somebody coming and saying, sir, we are importing it from China, is there any agreement available? All of us will immediately say, no agreement with China, right? So why don't you take a look at it and give a feedback later? Okay, we still have APTA in force. SAFTA. The most misused agreement is SAFTA. Many people, including the Future Group in Bombay, they were convicted for importing garments from Singapore and Dubai, moving it to a landlocked customs, and they brought it under SAFTA. And even the CFO was reprimanded for this reason, Mr. Maheshwari, and he paid some 15 crore fine and all. So that was the time in 2018, this all happened, exploitation of SAFTA. And I'll come to that other exploitations, and when I talk about CAROTAR a little later. Mercosur. Mercosur is something which we are not very frequently used, who will go and ship a goods from all the way from South America to here. And GSP with 47 developing countries, there is a GSP systems which is in place. So these are all the regional agreements for your understanding that you should know. So, which means 12 plus 34 plus 5 blocks. India is still negotiating further more agreements, which in the coming days that you will see. Now, if you see India-Japan partnership agreement. I told you in the beginning itself, partnership agreement comprises not only goods, because in the first line, what you see is trade in goods, regulations, standard conformity, phytosanitary measures, and trade and service. Trade and service has 4 modes: mode 1, mode 2, mode 3, mode 4. That is primarily they accepted natural person movement. Investment, IPR, government procurement, competition, improvement of business environment, and cooperation with disputes settlement. So these many things were included into the Indo CEPA. All right. Okay. So now, since we are focusing more on trade related to goods, so we will hold our discussion mainly on this. This is to tell you that how that another CEPA, for example, Indo-South Korea Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, how that works. Just see that here. Now, this came into effect from 2010. Okay. Trade in goods, which includes anti-dumping and safeguard measures. Trade and service, trade facilitation and cooperation. Even all of us are very familiar with trade facilitation. Telecommunication, movement of natural person, mode 3 in GATS, and then audiovisual cooperation, co-production, investment, competition, IPR, bilateral cooperation, and dispute settlement. So, which means, I told you in the beginning, FTA is very vast. And, in CEPA, it is all, we choose and we negotiate. We choose and we negotiate. Now, how this generally, the tariff elimination happens, this also you should know. If you see take the rules of origin, because always there is a basic draft which is available called rules of origin, because of which they replicate it in the non-tariff notification. We call it as subordinate legislation. And that is what we call it as rules of origin. Now here, if you see this E0 classification, everything on the date of commencement, it will become zero duty. And those items which were classified under the product classification under E5, which will have duty elimination in 5 equal stage, which means it will start from 2010. Every year it will diminish little. So which means what we should understand, if it is 100%, 20% will be reduced every year. By 5 years, it will become zero. Likewise, E8 in the 8th installment. And there is something in the last line, if you see, exclusion list, duty will not be eliminated, excluded from this. You remember which I said? Then the second line, sensitive list. For India, duty to be reduced by 50% from the base rate in 10 equal stages. So Korea, this is how we both mutually agreed. Korea has agreed like this and India agreed like this in 8 equal stages. So this is how the duty elimination will take place in every trade negotiation. So which are the categories will come under which is what the discussion will take place. And that is what exactly is happening between India and UK as well. So how do you see this, the customs notification non-tariff 187? Likewise, for every origin, every notification that is available, which I'm sure in the tariff you will be able to see it. Now, this notification will have a condition. Now, question is, as a customs broker, your importer is saying, I wanted to invoke Korea. What is the condition? So you immediately just go through that and verify, sir, 35% value addition. Okay, so that's the only thing which we say. What other conditions are there? 6-digit HS code. Very hardly that you find out and you just come out and we do it. And then what else? Wholly produced in member country. So these are the things that we give in piecemeal information. Sometimes we understand, sometimes we don't understand, but we give. Okay, I'll try to give you some solution for that as well in the coming slides. Now that UAE, this we call it as Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement with UAE. Recently, 2020 introduced. Every broker needs to read ASEAN. Every agreement you should read. Hardly I've given you 5 broad agreement. So make sure that you and your friends just sit together and you read agreement in force and from May onwards. Here, this is also a deep agreement. What all it covers? Trade in goods, origin, services, trade by technical barriers, SPS, dispute, natural person, telecom, customs procedure, pharmaceutical procedure, government procurement, IPR, investment, digital trade, and cooperation with other areas as well. So which means UAE is one of the most comprehensive agreement. But you see the number of lines which was exposed. The tariff lines dealt by India, 11,000 tariff lines. Whereas in UAE, they opened up only 7,581 tariff lines. So this is how the tariff lines were exposed. India will be using UAE almost 90% of the tariff lines. So which means the gain is for India. We get 90% exposure. Okay. So these are the things which you can read it. The latest one is April 2022. We call it as ECTA, Cooperation and Trade Agreement. Okay. So this was the recent one which you can lay hands on it. Again, same way, which origin, services, trade, sanitary, dispute, natural person, telecom, customs, pharmaceuticals, cooperation, other areas. Covers all tariff lines dealt by India and Australia. So which means almost 135 sectors, 120 subsectors were exposed in this. And so which means this is a 100% tariff open agreement for preferential trade. All right. Now, how do you check as a broker? All of you may be aware, may not be aware. If it is a news, please take it. If you are already doing this work, happy about it. Go to a portal called Indian Trade Portal. If you want to understand how this portal works, just log in into this portal. I've just given you a screenshot, but still you should log in there. Choose your agreement and you will see amazing. It's a tool. It just comes to you tool. Every tariff line. What is the change in tariff heading? What is the subheading change? What is the RVC change? See how it looks like, for example. 4501, that was an item chosen. And you see this 4501, 9,000. Comprehensive Partnership Agreement, Rules of Origin, with the PDF file is attached. And the normal value, MFN value is 5, and this value is 0. How do you avail this? Value addition is 40%. So in the moment, if your customer is saying that my item is 4501, you put it, you get a complete picture in front of you under the UAE agreement. If you choose it, you know, okay, the normal MFN rate is 5%, you will get 0% subject to value addition of 40%. That's what Mr. Dheer also said this. Okay. Yeah. Chaital, you were saying something? You raised your hand?
Yes, Joshua, sorry to interrupt, but one of the attendees has requested if you can explain TRQ in SEPA.
Yeah. SEPA is what we are talking about, no? Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement is SEPA.
They are asking about the TRQ.
Yeah. Tariff quota. TRQ
Yes.
is tariff quota. So we'll talk about it in the course.
Thank
So,
you.
Indian Trade Portal website, please log in and click that free trade agreement, and where you will be able to see. So which means every customs broker, before you could file a bill of entry, use this tool. You know, you don't need to, like Mr. Dheer said, when you take part B and when you verify what is the value addition which is mentioned, what is the percentage which is subscribed, if you open it, the value addition formula will be there. You know, many issues were cropped up because of this profit shifting. 5% profit is acceptable. They just shift the profit to meet that value addition. So many things have happened, which you will come to know, which I will also tell when I come to closer to CAROTAR. So here you have a tool in front of you where you can check how to see all this kind of details. And then trade negotiations, which is currently going on, that is between India and USA, India and European Union, India and GCC countries, and also with New Zealand, Canada, Israel, and CIS countries, and UK in the last list that is also shown. This is all there in the Commerce Ministry website. So 12 we have seen there, 9 we are seeing here. Forget about the LDC unilateral things. So, and we have seen 5 blocks. So these many trade agreements are there. So which means during the Diwali time, you have enough agreements to be read, enough agreements to be understood. If you see the one agreement, if you put a lot of efforts, the rest of the agreements are somewhat a slight tweak will be there, easy for you to understand. So choose any one agreement, ASEAN, SAFTA, and go deep into it, and that will help you to go and get a good understanding on that. All right. Now we come to the last part of our session and very important part of our session, CAROTAR. So almost we started at 4 o'clock. We are 4:50, close to 4:50, and we have reached over here. So as per our schedule, we'll try to finish it in the next 30 minutes or so, if you show some interest on this. The screenshots, whatever that you see, all these things are there from Government of India. CBIC has issued a CAROTAR manual. It is all now. I've given you the source also there. I can also show you how it is so comprehensive, so well explained. You know, in case if you missed it out, you can go and get this CAROTAR brochure. Just go to Google and say CAROTAR brochure. You will get one 15 pages brochure, and very easily it's available. Okay, now very important for you. I'm just stopping the screen for a while and come back again to the screen. CAROTAR. Why CAROTAR? This was a question. Why CAROTAR? CAROTAR, though CAROTAR is a word, why CAROTAR in first place? There was, if you see the brochure which I asked you to go through it, that brochure itself said one country started importing goods from, that is one country with which we have an agreement. They have ARECANET, ARECA, that also they have mentioned. Okay. So they are saying this country doesn't have the wherewithal to produce that item, but they started putting in exactly in 2019. You know, CAROTAR came in 2020, right? So this came in 2019. In the recent trade and instances of misuse, this very, you know, if I tell some stories, you may say you heard it from somewhere. I will just show you so that you believe what I'm saying. If you have not read it, probably I'll also direct you to read this. Okay, so I'm showing you the CAROTAR. Now see here in point number 5. Point number 5. For instance, in 2019, a verification visit, the investigation team of DRI unearthed a large-scale fraud. I'm reading here, left side, bottom. I'm just showing the mouse here. Please read it along with me. Directorate of DRI, DRI unearthed a large-scale fraud wherein Aricanet from third country was being imported into India from a FTA partner, duly covered by certificates. The issuing authority issues the COO in the form and manner prescribed in the trade agreement. Okay, now I'm the origin issue. Okay, so 5.2 here, continued here. Of origin issued by issuing authority, that the partner country. It was observed that most of the supposed producer did not have any facility to process Aricanet and were claiming transit goods of third countries to be originating from that country. Misuse of trade agreements not only causes losses to the exchequer. So now what you are reading from this point is, there is a country which, in a simple terms, they do not, this is one incident recorded. Another incident which was not recorded is, there is a country where we have trade agreement, moved more than 4,000 metric tons of X item into India, and it is imported by one party. And when government went back, same DRA, went back to that country and said, your country's total wholly produced capability is only 1,000 metric tons. How can you export 4,000 metric tons? There is no answer. You know, if you go and touch certain countries' sovereignty, they will not tolerate. So DRI has limitation. Now, can you go and question the state head that your countrymen did a fraud? Then it is a shame on them. They couldn't do anything. So then government started losing left. People were misusing, literally, you should say, CAROTAR benefits. Left and right, they were misusing it. So then government has no other choice to shift the burden from G to G to B to G. That is when the government said, okay, I will introduce a rule. The moment you introduce a rule, what will happen? Immediately people will go to the court and they will say this rule doesn't have any locus standi. This is ultra virus, not applicable. You can't do anything because this is, you need a law to back it up. So the government brought the first step of introducing Section 28 to DA, Section 28 DA in the Customs Act. So this act empowers an importer. The first and foremost thing what they are saying is, if you are an importer, forget about custom broker, your role comes later. An importer supposed to know the word what was mentioned there is very cleverly and trickily mentioned. The importer to possess, suppose if the word says like this, the importer to possess adequate information or minimum information or maximum, it is defining. But you know what they used a word called? The importer to possess sufficient origin related information. Now the question is, what is sufficient? Suppose if I tell you, let us go to, suppose in India, we say Saint Stephen College, okay? Or nowadays, every college is having a cutoff. If your son or daughter having sufficient mark, we will admit them inside our college. Now, what will you assume? Are they saying 60%? Are they saying 90%? Sufficient is an open-ended question. Even today, 99.9% is also a sufficient mark. 60% was sufficient then. Once upon a time, you score 60%, you are first class passed, distinction passed. Your parents will be going and giving chocolates and appreciating. Today, 99.9, where they still say, no, your student, your ward or your child hasn't attained the sufficient threshold category. So which means it is individually, there is no one can define what is sufficient. That is the point that you need to understand and explain to your importer. If your importer is getting irritated saying that, what are you asking? Why this customs officer is asking? Because they inherited this powers. You need to understand this. They inherited this power purposefully, very carefully, so that they will be able to stop these kind of scrupulous imports. Okay. So the words like this, they are empower the importer to possess sufficient origin information, related information. The first point of query into origin of goods where preferential treatment has been sought will now be on importer shifting from G to G, that is government to government, like DRA asking Sri Lanka, hey, why are you sending so much of goods? It's from to business to government. It has shifted. You ask. I will not ask. You want the benefit? You ask. You check. You get satisfied. And that is how the shift has taken place. Is that clear to you? So this should satisfy your first questions. Okay. Okay. And let's, before getting into some case studies, this concept is also very important. Wholly produced, maybe for the benefit of some new entrants, wholly produced, very easily for you to understand. What is wholly produced? Anyone can comment what is wholly produced? If you see any comment, let me know, Chaitanya.
Yes, absolutely. Completely produced. Sophia Qureshi says completely produced.
Hey guys, we are not expecting you to rephrase what wholly means completely produced, that we everybody understand. Wholly produced.
Someone says recovered from that country 100% or goods produced in the country issuing CO or sourced from the same country or naturally procured products.
All right. So now my recommendation is, again, I'm just taking you to a notification of ASEAN, and I'm trying to show you, to make you understand, though the word wholly produced is not going to change in every rules of origin. However, as a customs broker, you can't make generalized statement at all. Okay, you can't make generalized statement at all. Now, if you see, what is wholly produced? If you see 4, is this visible, or you want me to make it a little bigger?
Yes,
Okay.
this is fine. It's perfect. This one is perfect.
Perfect, right? Okay, very good.
Yeah.
Now, you see, I am using, okay, you should also see the citation. I'm using 189 of 2009 ASEAN notification, okay, non-tariff notification. So I'm just, this is how everybody needs to, one day if you read one notification, you'll be mastering this. All right, okay. Wholly produce. For the purpose of clause A of rule 3. So immediately you go to rule 3. Rule 3, clause A says products which are wholly obtained or produced in the exporting party as specified in rule 4. So which means, again, you come back of rule 3, the following shall be considered as wholly produced. A. Chaitali, can you read A? Plant.
Yes. Products which are
No,
talking about
A. Plant.
yes, plant and plant products grown and harvested in the party.
Thank you. So which means, in my country, if I grow a plant or if I grow a plant products which is grown here and harvested here, that is wholly produced, which means nothing is outside. For the purpose of class, plant means plant life includes all these things as explained. If there is a live animal born here and raised, or if there is a product obtained from a live animal, these are the explanation. So now, for example, as a broker, I'm moving into a workshop mode. I'm asking you to read this. How much time it will take for you to read this line? 4 lines. Because this explanation is very, very important. The moment an officer is able to counter you, or your importer or your supplier or anyone for that matter tries to convince you, immediately you will come over here. Forget about CAROTAR. Yeah. CAROTAR is only a regulation. I need to be solid in my foundation. Hardly. Do you think I have 300 agreements? If you are expected as a broker to read 300 agreements, okay, I agree. We hardly have 5 major agreements, which I showed you. We hardly have 12 total individual bilateral is only 12, on which 6 are not even operational. Rarely you will get. So you have 6 over there and you have 6. So hardly each day one, you can finish it. Now you come back. One agreement, if you put time like this, all your agreements are replica of this. So it's very easy for you to finish that remaining thing. Read that explanation too. Product of sea fishing. So wholly obtained and not wholly obtained has been explained very clearly over here. So what is wholly obtained? What is not? And what is direct method? What is indirect method? What kind of a method? Each party are free to adopt each one, which we have already seen. So this is how the rules are framed. Okay, so I'm stopping it here and I'm moving into my PPT mode. Okay. So now the rules of origin is to be understood before we move into CAROTAR. What I can call it as wholly produced. what is partially produced, what is RVC, what is cumulative of origin. So these four things as a broker, number one, what is wholly produced, what is partially produced, what is originating, what is non-originating material. It's very simple. What is coming in from India, what is not coming in from India, what is produced in India, what is not produced in India. It's very simple. If you use common sense, it is very easy for us to understand. And then you move into an RVC concept and you apply either direct method or indirect method. Then if there is a block, if that agreement permits cumulative, that is important. You can't apply cumulative everywhere. For example, a product can be considered of Thailand origin when partial manufacturing processes are carried out in Indonesia, Malaysia, all other member countries of ASEAN. So, which means that's the diagram which I've explained. If the notification does not have a clause like cumulative, you cannot apply cumulative principle. Have you understood? So that is how you have to first understand this. Now we will see one case study. Let me just ask you. Definitely, we are not going to give you a price, but still it will provoke your thought process and see how much you can. I'll just put two case studies and see how we can respond to that. Okay. All right. So now there is a diagram which is there. Third party invoicing. Where do we start? We start with first India. Start with India. We are the importer, right? So Indian customer is placing an order on Germany. Can you see the first line? Order placed in Germany. Now the second line. Germany is dispatching to Malaysia. Germany is selling to Malaysian supplier. And number three, India is making a payment to Germany. So India places an order to Germany. India makes a payment to Germany. Germany tells the supplier in Malaysia, supply these goods to India. So the fifth line is, and because Germany making the payment to Malaysia, goods are now supplied to India. Question is, Indian importer can claim preferential under IAFTA or India-Malaysia CICA. That means IAFTA means India-ASEAN FTA or India-Malaysia CICA. So there are two agreements are there. Because Germany, I am placing an order. Germany in turn giving an instruction to Malaysia. Malaysia supplying the goods. So goods are coming originated from Malaysia and the deal is happening from Germany. Okay, so I'm sure you will face some situations like this. Now question is whether the Indian importer can claim ASEAN benefit or Malaysia benefit. What is the answer coming out?
Malaysia.
Wait. Everybody can think over, look into the diagram. I will give you 30 seconds and I'll give you 30 seconds.
Mr. Yadav, you've raised your hand. Can you please put your question in the Q&A, or if you have anything to say, can you write it in the chat box, please? Thank you.
All right. So, Chaitanya, any good answers?
Mostly everybody is saying Malaysia or India, Malaysia.
Or India, Malaysia. Very good.
Yes.
Anybody said both?
Yes, we have a couple of them saying India, Malaysia, both.
Oh, very good. So let's see the answer. Yes, Indian importer can claim preferences or under Malaysia also. There is a specific provision for third country or third party invoicing under both the frameworks. So Article 22 as well as point number 21. So now if your importer is asking, sir, only Malaysia we can do, or only from this ASEAN we can do. If you say like that, then it is not a very validated response because your importer will get misled because he will rely on you and he will ask you, because you assume yourself, you are a consultant. You are supposed to know this. You are not a postman. You are not someone to go and take instruction from an importer and to do. You have to tell your importer very clearly, there is a provision which permits. So how do you get this provision? Unless you don't read, you will not know, no? So spend some time and read this kind of a provisions in every agreement, rules of origin. In some rules of origin, this kind of a third-party invoicing provisions may not be there. If it is not there, not possible. If it is there, then we should invoke it. Okay, let's prick your brain on one more question. Okay, so now you see here, the Malaysian supplier is supplying the goods to Singapore. Singapore, without any value addition, pushing the goods to India. Are you following me? Malaysian supplier manufacturing a good and sending it to Singapore. Singapore keeps it in the warehouse. No packing, nothing. It is just as it is lying in Singapore. And from Singapore, it is coming to India. Okay, it is a sale which is happening from Singapore party. Now, question is whether the importer in India can claim tariff preferential benefit under ASEAN FTA. Yes or no? What answer we are getting, Chaitali?
Yes.
Everyone saying yes. Okay, very good.
Yes.
Yes, it is possible under the provision of Article 11. Operational certification procedure for the rules of origin, India, ASEAN, customs non-tariff notification 189. While ago, just I showed you the notification. That notification, Article 11 of this agreement, that importer in Singapore can apply back-to-back COO. Have you understood this word? Back-to-back COO to the COO issuing authority in Singapore based on the original COO received from Malaysian exporter. This is allowed provided Article 11 is fulfilled in Singapore. So, interestingly, if we have this information, you would have secured one business. Your importer would have done this. If you would have told them, no, sir, we have to check, then they will go to a consultant like me. Then I'll be charging some fees for giving the same idea. So don't lose opportunities henceforth. Don't send anybody to us. Okay. All right. Now, we're stopping here and then we'll move into some different topics. I think we'll keep the PowerPoint on only till the end now, because it is required. All right. So these are all the informations in the portal as well as in the, what do you call, the brochure. I picked it up from the brochure only. You yourself can refer to the brochure and it's all there. Whichever is the manual. We don't go by this. You need, there is a, if you see India, Malaysia, 35% plus tariff change in subheading level, or there is a product specific requirement. Now, if you see in all the agreements which India is currently negotiating, this was not there earlier. Okay. Now, our government is very, very particular. I want these items under PSR. Even they are saying, you know, in product level, this changes, a particular changes must, see, you may meet criteria of the rules of origin criteria, but still you may achieve the RVC, but still we want this also to get satisfied. So make sure you see whether it is saying, or like in SAFTA, they said PSR specifically mentioned for certain products, which means it is not for every product. It is only for certain products. Okay. So that also you should see whether you have a requirement in that way. So now we will go to, these are the CAROTAR rules. Somebody said, what is CAROTAR in the questions which I got it. So the basic notification circular which you need to read is 38 of 2020, where under the government has inherited the power under section 2080A and issued this notification. So this notification has certain guidelines. This guidelines, this is how the notification reads. Number one, section 28DA talks about it was inserted in your Finance Act 2020 because 2019 all this fraudulent things were reported. The word which I already explained, sufficient information has to be there. Okay. Now there is one interesting judgment. You can't argue with customs because the position has changed. Earlier, the government, Bombay Exports May, the tribunal Chennai was open saying that if you obtain a certificate of origin from the exporter in the format, which means you are entitled to get the benefit. So this is gone. So you need to keep in mind there is no judgment till date backing the or going against CAROTAR till date. Okay, CAROTAR obligation. Now, if you see that brochure as well as in my presentation, that you are now forced to declare a couple of information inside the bill of entry. So now, as long as it is restricted to Form I, no problem. But here, as a customs broker, you are obligated as per rule 3. Importer is required to declare on the bill of entry. Now, when importer is required to declare on the bill of entry, equally the responsibility on customs broker. Goods to fulfill that origin criteria under relevant trade agreement along with tariff notification to claim the preferential duty. Rule 3 of CAROTAR, they say number 1, the reference number to be incorporated. Number 2, the date of issuance. Number 3, originating criteria. What is originating criteria? You should not be scratching. You should put 35%, 25%, whatever is there in the Form I. Whether accumulation is applied or not. Now, there it will say no. You need to say, or sometimes they may say, yes, you should open the rule and you should check whether accumulation is there or not. These are the mandatory checklist for every customs broker prior to applying it, not blindly following it. Accumulation applied, how? First, go back to the notification and check whether the notification allows accumulation. If that doesn't allow your CAROTAR, the Form I is saying accumulation allowed, yes, then again you can stop and then question. Otherwise, it will be deemed as misdeclaration. The benefit will not be given. Whether issue by a third country or whether it's a direct shipment. So check. Now you understood all these things. What is third country? What is direct shipment? What is accumulation? What is origin criteria? So your job is to check all these things and then only to permit. So do the same appraisal work. So COO should cover each item with the preferential rate of duty being claimed. Okay, very good. Now, Rule 4A requires the importer to possess information as indicated in Form I. The information has to be filled and retained for 5 years. That is okay. Form I is contained a comprehensive information generally not available with importer. This information is not usually available with importer. Now, sometimes this brochure also says we are not asking for your BOM, that is your bills of materials. We are not asking for your costings very clearly. So if you read that, we will also show you that information to be provided in section 3 of Form I should be possessed by importer before the goods import. Now, if it is 2020, it is work for us to go through all these things. Now you are doing day in and day out. Okay. So it is not appropriate for us to go and read these provisions and the rules. Maybe we can take some kind of a complex questions, anything if you have, you can put it across. Still, we will go through this compulsory verification. One very, very important. When I have a doubt, because I have the power now to check your document, I will tell you, you'll be surprised. Even exchange rate is converted in Thai bahts to US because of exchange rate fluctuation. Invoice is having a different value and the COO is having a different value. The customs officer is asking for an explanation. You give an explanation and he says that I am going to send this for verification. Or you clear it, I'm going to reject it. That is how there are, I do not know whether there is some internal instructions are there to stop as much clearance or not. Left and right, this is also happening unreasonably. Right. Now, what we need to see here is officers are expressing their doubts. When they express a doubt, now you are not confident to give a response on the letterhead of importer, or if you are not in a position to explain, they are simply saying, clear it under provisional bill of entry. Give a bond and bank guarantee. We will send this to DIC. DIC is Directorate of International Customs in Delhi. They were the nodal body, will liaise with the origin country, and we will get this clarified and come back. Now, Shrija Nair, when the start of the session, she put a comment. Maybe here I would like to, Mr. Deer, I would like to also have his attention. You as an importer, when there is a discrepancy observed by customs officer, executing a bond and bank guarantee, the bond and clearing the goods under section 18, provisionally you are clearing the goods. After that, what happened? Are you aware? Is there a communication from the custom house going to DIC? From DIC, are there any communications going to that origin country? Whether DIC getting a response from origin country back to our country, what kind of responses, your experience, we would like to know. Could you please give your view on that, Mr. Dean? How was your
Thank you.
experience on that?
Thank you, Mr. Joshua. But this whole process is, the most opaque process in the whole custom clearance. So you never know from the point, first they say provisional assessment. They don't give you the reasons why they have a doubt on your value and what reasons they are going for provisional assessment. In spite of giving all kind of explanation and, satisfying all the criteria, the certificates are being sent for verification. There is no communication from the customs. There is no communication from DIC. And even in spite of following up at all the levels, you don't get any information whether actually your certificate has been sent for verification. Once, if they say yes, it has been sent, then whether you have received back or not is also not known. So I think this is a process which doesn't have any transparency at all, actually.
Sir, if you as an industry expert, if you are in a position to say like that, imagine the customs broker situation.
I understand. I fully appreciate and understand, because I also pressurize my brokers to get the things done faster.
Okay.
Though in spite of using our good offices and putting pressure at all the ends to get the things done faster, but I can understand the trouble which a custom broker must be going through because of this non-transparent process.
Very good, sir. So all of you please understand there is a solution to it. Okay. Now, brokers as well as importers, you can handle this in such a way. Is this the right solution or not the right solution? You can decide. Now, my job is to take a PD bond and to clear the shipment. I have done it. Okay. Now, on what pretext CAROTAR told me that officer will send this for further investigation. No doubt about it. Okay. We also appreciate that. That's why we want this material, we cleared it. Now, once internally when they send it and they get it, there is a method which is legally available called with 100 rupees you can get some information. Anyone can say that? What is that? Only spending 100 rupees you can get that. Okay, let us Vinay Krishnan. Yes. Oh, writ. Palak is saying writ. Okay, hold on. All of you are aware about writ and all of you are aware about RTA. Now, my question back to you. How many of you brokers have written to customs or invoked an RTA application and said, sir, I have given you a PD bond. What is the status? It is almost 1 year. Have you invoked your RTA? Let me see yes or no. No comments are coming. Yes, Jignesh. Very good. And so Jignesh, what maybe no RT Ami Kotar is saying no reply. Yes.
So, here, Mr. Joshua,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Dheer, this issue has been flagged off by BCBA and our FFI, which is our All India Federation, to National Custom Trade Facilitation Authority, which is the authority being monitored under Cabinet Secretary directly. We have made representation to member customs and CBIC chairman that there needs to be some time limit prescribed, and if it's whatever has been prescribed under 81 of 2020 non-tariff notification, then implementation of that, because across the country, whether this has not been, time limits are not followed, the local custom stations convey that this is pending with Department of International Customs, and there is no feedback which is coming in from Department of International Customs. Now they are supposed to specifically update the appraising groups. The last interaction with Jain Customs, we have asked them to set up a help desk, give a some kind of tracking or updation facility wherein member can go across and can check with Jain Customs whether the provisional assessment which they had carried out 6 months back, 12 months back, or 24 months back, verification of that has come back from DIC or not. And that comes directly to the appraising groups. So nobody, it's such a, that needs a lot of transparency. Our efforts are on, and we have requested other trade chambers during our meeting with trade chambers, that is namely CIA, SOCHAM, FIO, FICCI, Indian Merchant Chamber. We have requested that all trade chambers as importers need to write to, and I request all participants that please mention this to your importers to write to member customs and CBIC directly. If it is beyond the time limit, share the copy with us at BCBA. We are making our monthly feedback compilation and addressing it also with CBIC. So this is a very valuable feedback. Just by complaining, we will not reach anywhere. We will require proper verifiable data to get ahead and get the situation improved in this aspect. So that's my submission to all participants here. Thank you.
Thank you, Dushyant. Very well said that you made so much of efforts. Definitely, it is worthwhile. We will expect some response. The quicker way is, because all of you are broker, maybe you should suggest to your importer there is a better way you can handle, because we have not seen a single matter comes to the court till date. Somebody in the group has said writ petition. So the first thing is, before you go to the court, we have to exhaust available remedial measures. So Dushyant has very categorically exhausted lot of remedial measures. Even he has not left out NCTC. Okay, so which means though that is not the body to address this matter, but still you went to that everywhere. Whatever that you said is self-explanatory. So which means what you can do, for example, if one importer can decide, though of course I'm not saying response is not coming. Yes, response is coming to TSK and defacing are happening, no doubt about it. But by and large, more than 2,000 crores of amount is pending. 2,000 crores. When will this get reassessed or finalized? So the best simple way is, if one party who builds the cat, one party goes and says that, okay, Commissioner, every options he is exhausting, just file a 226. The court will send a message. Obviously, they duty bound to give a response. That's all. And or you finalize it. If there is a technical delay from your end, if you are see, you go back to the same concept of valuation. What did the government did in 2016? Wide 4 of 2016 and 5 of 2016. They said all you people are sleeping with the EDD. There is an accumulated EDD. You are not finalizing. If you are not finalizing before this date, it is deemed to be that it is closed. So your RD is discontinued. So maybe the effort taken by your association should yield something related to that. But the intent of the government on the other side, which I flagged out, one is trade deficit. And number 2, even for AEOs, they are not giving this benefit. 2 of 2021 very clearly said, your AEO is also out. So which means the government is serious in thinking about securing the revenue. Why do you get into this PD assessment when you don't have any solution? We as a broker, you do this check what importers, what customs is doing, reject the transaction then and there itself, or help the importer to understand, equip themselves, let the genuine importer move forward. If whatever happened in the past, like what this kind of an efforts can move on. Okay, let's go ahead and move ahead. Identical goods. If there are some identical goods are happening, if one case is rejected, the rule 7.1 says, or also 7.2b says, the entire chain of identical goods item preferential duty can be reversed. So, which means you would have been successfully doing it 100 shipments. The 101, if you have a problem, if it is identical, this is a dangerous thing. So, the the checklist what we are talking about should be exercised very cautiously and judiciously. All right. Penal action. Someone said to me, "Arey yaar, CAROTAR mein there is no penal action." Okay. So section 28 DA under chapter 5 AA is introduced now, which means any violation under Customs Act will automatically the same penal provisions will be applicable, and the penalties and whatever the remedial measures for misdeclaration will follow. So you can't get away from that. Bank guarantee we had spoken. Protest, is it something that we can do it? Yes, you can do it. Rule 5.4, if the importer fails to give certain information, the proper officer can ask for it and he can launch that verification. And till such time, he can allow you to clear the goods under provisional. The data, you need to maintain it for 5 years. That anyway, all of you are maintaining it. And let's get into some important things to check in the form 1. Okay, so I'll share the screen now. Okay. What all you need to check in the form 1? If supplier claims the goods to be wholly obtained, check the rule wholly obtained, which I told you. Confirm if all inputs like preservatives are all originating. Sometimes, we miss out. Some agreements will allow certain percentage of it. So certain weight, certain values are allowed of non-originating elements. That is what, undeterminable origin, it is allowed. So check that. If supplier claims to have non-originating components, but meeting the origin criteria, then what you should do, check the tariff heading, ask for the form appended around CAROTAR 2020. Niche, you have that form, you ask for the details, whatever is mentioned in that. The public notice, whatever it is mentioned earlier, 2017, everything got descended. Even for AEO clients, it was allowed self-certified copies. That is known to you. We don't need to talk much about it. So one of main reason you should be very careful about a lot of goods now coming from China, especially from Vietnam and from exploiting the ASEAN countries. So that is something which you need to be putting your lens and checking all even a minor things. If they find out, they are rejecting it. So pay more attention to it. There is one observation which you can see. Under the CAROTAR, when we calculated the RVC, we added 5% profit. Okay. So it is better the government, we suggested that it is better the government, why to keep 35, adding the profit, why not 30? You keep it 30 so that the profit ratio doesn't come into the calculation, RVC calculation. Why do? Because profits are likely to oscillate between. Okay. So that was taken care. I think in the UAE FTA, they taken care of this. So they removed the profit ratio. So that is one good thing. Going forward also, the government might remove the profit from that. Practical guide. This is what Dushyant asked. So now, first thing, section 46, casting a responsibility on you, especially C, compliance with restriction and prohibition. If any relating to goods in the act of any other law enforce, accuracy and completeness, authenticity and validity of any document supporting it. So which means by you filing a CAROTAR document, you are not doing an obligation. It is actually a responsibility on you. It is a responsibility on importer, but it is also a responsibility on you as well. Okay. So otherwise it's bound to get rejected. Second, entire document has to be correct. check HS code, then go to the PSR, product specific restriction, then check exemption notification. Calculation of RVC. So ask for these documents. Get a process from the importer. If there is wherever there is a drawing involved, get a drawing or MSDS, that you try to study the process and you just try to get yourself convinced. Also, be careful about when there is a 6-digit level change. Okay, wherever there is a duty change, definitely you need to see check the process to determine and accept the RVC. Don't avoid importing trader goods without proper information. Somebody is giving you a lot of pressure and giving you a lot of kind and a lot of promises. Don't get circumvented to that kind of a pressure. Don't expect supplier will give you all information at the time of information. That may be confidential. Don't expect correct calculation of RVC. Supplier may not like to disclose their profit percentage. Ultimately, don't forget, customs have passed on the responsibility to importers. You cannot approach the customs commissionerate unless some query is raised. Conclusion: the ecosystem customs is changing rapidly, with or without paperless. The documents, supporting documents definitely needs to be validated. Entire documentation with customs is currently on eSanchit. So they are monitoring it with the help of AI, NCTC, a lot of technology they are involving it. So you cannot have an attitude, go and get it done kind of a thing. There is no such option. We have to sit back, CAROTAR, take extra time, take some extra service charges if required for CAROTAR, sit back and put some quality people. And quality people means those people have a discipline to read that notifications, rules of origin, hardly 5 major and 12. Whichever is relevant, you don't need to read everything. Whichever is relevant to you, at least you read it and create a mastery level there. Read that CAROTAR brochure and read all the notifications relevant to CAROTAR. It is not hundreds and thousands. It is just a new law developed. So have the mastery on rules of origin as well. Read other BOI binding origin information which is available in the portal. How origins are determined when they have a warehouse in other country, goods are manufactured from other country, what is considered, what is not considered. There are a lot of interesting jurisprudence there which you can use it for this purpose. So above all, this is a third pillar which we have not talked about very often. We spoke about HS very frequently. We spoke about valuation too, but we have not spoken about origin in this detail along with CAROTAR. So CAROTAR is an offshoot of your basic understandings of this rules of origin principle. If a broker is very thorough in the rules of origin principles and concepts, CAROTAR is just a process to be followed where you can defend your customer if they are right, or you can also support the customs when they are right. And certain things which is uncontrollable, which like what Dushan said, we'll have to wait and see. Or we need to, if you are in if your importers are supporting, then we should go ahead with take the court help and we can move on. So with this, we come to the end of the session exactly at 5:30, and I hand it over back to our president, Dushant Mulani. Over to you, Dushant.
Thank you, Joshua ji. I think our team is there to take few Q&A also. But my word of caution for all the our participants out here, there have been at least 14 custom brokers who are in contact with us, wherein based on a DRI case in FTA, the assessment wings have issued a show cause booking custom brokers also in 112 and 114 also. Now this predominantly the case starts with trading goods. Second, wherever a particular CTH is mentioned on the FTA and they've taken another CTH entry and there is a mismatch. Apparently because of pressure from the importers, they have done this. Even for reputed importers, EO tier 2 and tier 3, this has happened. And this is in last 3 to 4 months. So my request and caution to all would be that be doubly sure, study the documents well. In case of doubts, take declarations properly from importers, upload on e-Sanchit and then put up the bill of entry. And Mr. Joshua, you are aware about these cases also. Mr.
Yeah,
Deep has also understood. Thank you. Over to you, team.
Thank you very much. It's been an absolute wonderful session, Mr. Joshua and Mr. Veer. Very interactive, and the audience has also been amazing, answering all your questions and putting up questions. They've been they have been very vocal, and we've received a lot of questions. To just let the participants know that we will not be able to take all the questions today, but as usual, we have compiled all your questions and we are going to be sending it across to both our panelists. And once they reply, we are going to be circulating it to everyone. We have time for a couple of questions, so we are just going to pick and choose. Just give me a second. One question that we've received a lot of questions on retroactive clause. One question by Mr. Vinay Krishnan is, for retroactive clause, how should we count the 3 days? There is no clarity of 3 working days in non-tariff notification of APTA. Certificate of origin date is 21st of August and BL date is 16th of August. TSK and AO of RMS department is not accepting our interpretations. They are saying BL date is 16th August and 16th, 17th, 18th Friday, the certificate of origin must be issued.
Dean, would you like to take?
If you see the after notification, it says, Chaitali, that the certificate to be issued within at the time of exportation or within 3 days from date of shipment. So if the date of shipment is say 16th of August, then 16th will not be included. It is 17th, 18th and 19th. And it should be the working day in the country of issuance. So suppose it is coming from China, then the person needs to check whether it was a working day in China or not. If there were holidays involved in between, then those days have to be excluded and the next working day will be counted.
All right, perfect. I think that replies to a lot of people's question. Mr. Vinay Krishnan, I hope that replies you. That's a good answer for your question. We have one more. Mehul Kothari. He says, I have a consignment where we have received the certificate of origin with wholly obtained, and we have filed the same. Then we were told by the appraiser to specify importer, sent a detailed document where he had 99.79% RVC and 0.21% was not therefore wholly obtained. So wanted to know whether it's wholly obtained or not wholly obtained. We will get the country certificate of origin benefit or not.
Yeah, you have to see that particular, if a supplier is claiming as wholly obtained, you have to check whether there are some preservatives, etc., whether they are also originating. So what you say is 99.9%. If there are certain preservatives which is not originating, which is added, which can make a non-originating by weight or value. You remember when I said, so what is the percentage which is permitted under agreement that we need to say? If it is saying 1% of by weight, this can be permitted, then it is okay. If it is not permitted, then you will have to let go that position. It is 100%.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Joshua.
It is actually 100%, Chaitali. So
Okay.
in case if the agreement doesn't specify any deviation, then it's 100%. Otherwise, they have to say not wholly obtained and then claim the exemption. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Joshua.
This is a good
Thank you,
point,
Mr. Deep.
Chaitali. 1 minute.
Yes.
You might tell this gentleman, whoever raised that query, ask him to refer to 9.2 CAROTAR brochure dated 8th October 2020. Okay. Very simply, with an example, they have mentioned it also. For everybody, integrity is 100%. 99.9% is not an integrity. But only on this clause of wholly obtained, very specifically they said, if some agreements allow certain percentage of use, within bracket by value or weight, of non-originating elements, even when goods are claimed to be wholly obtained. So, that person who has raised a question need to go back to that agreement and read what that agreement says, does it give that leverage? Yes, we can go back to the AO. If it doesn't give that leverage, it is 100%. That's how it has to be understood.
All right. Thank you, Joshua, and thank you, Mr. Dheer. Mehul, I hope this answers your question and you can go back to that agreement. If you still have any questions, please do write to the Secretariat and we'll be happy to get it clarified. Another question by Mr. Kisan Pednekar is, Chamber of Commerce, Indian Merchant Chamber, Menon Chamber of Commerce, which is trusted or which one would you say is the correct agency to get a certificate of origin? And in this particular case, he's asking for a specific country, which is for Kuwait.
Chaitali, this is for export, I believe he is asking. So let's not get into
Okay.
this. This is not under CAROTAR, so
Fair enough.
you can
All
address
right.
it separately.
Okay. Mr. Jatin Palan has asked, if the shipment is made from Afghanistan to India but comes via Dubai and the invoice is from Dubai, can the importer get benefits under SAFTA?
This looks like an insane question. Please read it based on the teaching what we have given.
Yes. All right. Plinus Global Logistics Solution Private Limited has a question. Our importer regularly imports shipments under India-Korea SEPA. Regular queries we have from customs on direct import from the origin. As the problem is Korea-India air freight booking frequencies is not much. So transshipment on the other airlines will be booked, maybe including Dubai. Is our importer eligible in this case to avail duty exemption under SEPA, which it should be, right? Because it's just transshipment.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, 100%.
All right.
This is only a
Yes.
transshipment. It's not an indirect shipment at all.
So, Chaitali, just to add to that, so direct shipment does not mean that transshipment is not permitted. So it can come. What it means is that if your cargo is bought from USA, you can't take it to Europe for an exhibition, finish what you had to, and then bring it to India. Then you cannot claim. Or if it was coming from Korea, you cannot take it to Singapore for an exhibition, break the transit, and then reship it.
All right. What Miss Parul Mehrotra has asked, if we import identical goods from the same supplier again and again, then do we not claim preferential rate of duty?
Yeah, very much you can claim. If it is available in the respective agreement. For identical, it's much easy also. It's only verification is done only once, and for identical goods, every time verification is not required.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Dheer. And the last question is that we are taking up for today is by Mr. Surajit Das. Is there any specific format of Form I in CAROTAR? Because supplier is providing the standard format of Form I, but customs is not satisfied and is asking for many information which are not detailed in the CAROTAR guideline.
It is there as part of the CAROTAR rules only. If you see the CAROTAR rules 2020, the Form I has been prescribed in the rules itself.
I think the gentleman needs to read the notification well.
Yeah.
Yes. And one last question by Mr. S.K. Sharma. Is there any time limit for CBIC for FTA verification? And if yes, he's asking where is it mentioned?
It's 6 months, which is mentioned in the CAROTAR rules only.
All right.
Thank you. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Dheer. And with that, we come to an end of our Q&A session. I will now please ask our Honorary Secretary, Mr. Nirav Thakkar, to give the concluding remarks.
Thanks, Chaitali. Any panelists else who want to, say something before we can, conclude the session?
Oh, go ahead. I think Nirav, it's well.
All right. Thank you. So, on behalf of Greater Mumbai Custom Brokers Association, I express my deepest gratitude to Dr. Joshua and Mr. Dheer for conducting today's wonderful educative session on CAROTAR for all our members. Dr. Joshua, you have given us a great overview of the rules of origin, the FTAs, the CAROTAR. Frankly, your words seems like music to our ears. Truly, the explanation that you give has such a great impact. Maybe some of us would agree that even after reading various notices and circulars multiple times, the way you explain us clarify many doubts to a great extent. And we are aware that you also had an important meeting today. You worked around your schedule for BCBA, and you are soon after this session, next minute you are carrying your packed bag and leaving out for Mumbai. But really appreciate, sir. And Mr. Dheer,
I think Mr. Kode also would want to speak for a minute before after you complete.
Good evening, President, Mr. Joshua sir, Mr. Dheer sir, and dear members. CAROTAR is the most important session. Everybody, you all importers, all CVs know about it, and everybody is every day, each and every day dealing with on the CAROTAR issues. In Navasha also, in here also, many people are dealing with the same thing. And I think Joshua sir are always our living a mentor, nice speech, and always giving the good speech, and always coming with when we are called morning also he is there with the customer and always with us. So he is given the good speech and good, really appreciate it. Our questions and answers are giving the good answers. Dil sir and Joshua sir also. I think more than 250 members are attended this session and nicely presented by the Joshua sir. Thank you, Joshua sir. Very good, very nice, nicely presented you. Thank you very much, sir. Over to you, Nirav.
thank you, Kode sir. Going further, I would thank again Mr. Dheer for highlighting the practical issues which we can relate to as custom brokers, which we are facing in a day-to-day basis. And your simple solutions would 100% help us to avoid the problems which which we incur at the initial stage itself. Your presence today out of your busy schedule has been extremely beneficial to BCBA and the members. And both of our speakers have been very helpful in answering the questions of our members and the participants. And I'm sure that all are extremely satisfied with the responses. I wholeheartedly thank our most efficient multitasker, Shri Dushan Bhai, Shri Dushan Mulani ji, President of BCBA and now also the Chairman of FFAI, for his guidance in organizing the webinar today. He, along with Senior Vice President Mr. Sanjeev Harale, who's also heading the training committee as the office bearer in charge, have wonderfully conceptualized today's webinar after compiling the members' feedback and the multiple discussions with various speakers, with both our speakers as well and the panelists. The planning with the speakers and panelists has been actually ongoing since a month to make it successful, and all the efforts by the training committee in charge, Mr. Tej Contractor, Ms. Chaitali Mehta, has really paid off well with all the planning and organizing. Our office bearers and managing committee members present here, as well as are being part of this as a panel, as well as the other part, our entire team has actually shared great inputs, which have been taken up in compiling this, conceptualizing this. So their role has also been very important in designing today's program. Entire secretariat with especially Ms. Indu has been always instrumental to in ensuring that all the arrangements for the program are done in time, right from registration until enabling the meeting, as also follow up with the speakers for the reference material which is further shared with all our members. So and of course, last and not the least, all our participants present here today, you all must be applauded. Your participation has further encouraged us to initiate various such many more programs. You have raised really pertinent points, and which our panelists have been kind enough to address those. So this has benefited everyone who is present here. We had a good number of members today. So thank you all once again, and have a great evening further.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye,
Thank you for
everybody.
joining
Thank
in.
you very much.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
Thank you,
thank you.
Joshua sir. Thank you,
Thank you,
Dheer sir.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah,
Thanks
thank
a
you,
lot.
everyone.
Bye.
Thank you, Joshua. Thank you, Mr. Dheer.
Bye, 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 bye.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you, Dushan bhai. Thank you, Sanjeev sir. Thank you,
Yeah,
Neerav. Thank you,
thanks.
Kode ji. Thanks, Chaitali. And thanks, Vinayak Bhau and Ketan bhai for joining. Bye.
Bye-bye, Mr. Dheer, and thank you, Joshua. Thank you, Mr. Dheer.
Thank you, Chaitali. Thanks a lot.